Is-
How's it going?
All right, you can hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Yeah. How about you?
I'm good on this end.
Good. Good. How's life?
Life is okay. It's as you can see, it's starting to cool off in the North Country here, and so I've got my extra shirt on over over my other shirt.
I
But
love it.
otherwise, I'm doing fine. I'm just trying to put off the process of turning the furnace on and filling up the wood pellet stove.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where do I catch you today, Eric?
So I am actually just back from the East Coast. So I'm in Portland, Oregon. So I'm back home.
Oh, so home is Portland now.
Home is Portland, Oregon for 6 years now.
Aha.
Yeah. So it's a spectacular place in the summer. It's tough in the winter. Tough, different than like it's not Boston tough in where it's because it's not 10 degrees, but we can go weeks on end with gray and rain, which this is a different kind of tough.
Yeah. My dad was born in Medford.
Okay.
I guess they call it probably in Oregon they call it Medford.
Medford. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful down there.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
beautiful.
I visited it, some years ago just to see where he was born and all that, and did a 4-day canoe trip on the Rogue River.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah. I would say people always ask me because I'm not from here originally. They always ask you where, how do you like living up there? And I think you can make the argument that Oregon, Washington, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet with our Cascades, our freestanding volcanoes. I mean, these are just spectacular. These things that just rise up. If you've never seen them, right? You just rise up out of the ground and they're these massive volcanoes. And and just all of our beautiful trees. And I mean, it's just a spectacular place to live. I mean, it's really beautiful.
Well, let me introduce you so that we're formal at least. I'm speaking with my old friend Eric Bernhardt, who was at Mowgli at least coincidentally with me at moments, right?
Yes, I think that's right.
And uh, uh, it's great to see you, pal. And my brother and I hope we'll have a conversation that sort of takes us through your experiences at Mowgli and into your life since then, so that folks who watch this in the coming days will really know why it is that you've ventured up to Oregon. Because I think the last place I saw you was in LA, wasn't it?
That's right.
I mean, other than
That's good. That's a good memory. That's right. We were in LA with a small bunch of folks, I think in Venice Beach.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mark Ventimiglia, and
Mark Benamico,
might have
yeah.
been at his place. Yeah,
I think it was his place.
that was a lot of fun.
It's a good memory, Wayne. Wow.
Yeah, well, it isn't as crowded these days now that I'm sort of semi-retired.
There's more
So,
room for stuff in there.
yeah, I
Oh,
suppose.
amazing.
Even though I forget more.
All good. You remember the important stuff.
So, Eric, take us through how it was that you came to Mowgli in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting story. I don't know if other folks will, but it's kind of a funny one too. I've told this before. So I was born in LA, and I was the fourth of four. And it's funny because I have my three siblings were born with to a different father, and then when my mom and their dad got divorced, they actually were living up here in Oregon, and they moved down to LA. And I actually can't even quite remember why that happened, but anyway, she ended up meeting my dad down in LA. and they, as my mom called it, it was a 70s marriage. So it was so it lasted just a few years. But I came out of this sort of unexpectedly, let's call it. And so I was 9 years behind my brother, who was older than me. So I loved LA. We used to go down to the beach all the time. And then will never forget this. In 1984, when I was 10, my mom pulled me aside and said, I've just gotten a job opportunity in St. Louis, and we're going to be moving there. And I didn't really, I thought St. Louis was in Illinois. Like I was just like,
Right,
it's like
sure.
I was like, well, what is this place? And anyways, I was not happy. And so we ended up moving to St. Louis in the early summer of '84. And she's like, okay, I got to do something with this kid. And so I went to this camp in the middle of Missouri in the dead of summer. And to say that I disliked it is like an understatement, right? There were chiggers. I mean, it was hot, it was dusty. Like it was terrible. I came home and I think my mom really was sort of like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this kid. Like, I mean, he's just, his brothers and sisters are off in college, and I got him on my own. I've dragged him all the way out here, and he thinks this place is terrible. So the job she had taken was a admissions director at a prep school. And it just so happened that the financial aid director at that prep school was a guy by the name of Brooks Benjamin. And right, so now you sort of tie it all together. And so my mom sang, telling all of her colleagues the story, and Brooks said, look, why don't, Joni and I would like to have you and Erik over, and we'd like to talk about something. So I went over there, and he said, there's a camp that I went to and worked at, and it's in New Hampshire. It's a place called Camp Mowgli, and he showed me this sort of grainy video. And at the time, I remember thinking like, well, that place looks pretty cool. Like I like lakes, I like mountains, certainly better than the middle of Missouri. And so we decided, in 1985, I would go out there and give it a try. And so I remember it's just really funny. My mom drove me out there from St. Louis to New Hampshire, and maybe it took 3 days, something like that. And we got to Mowgli, and I was in Baloo, and we took my stuff out, we took my stuff up to Baloo, and basically, I can't remember who the counselor was, but basically he said, all right, see ya. And kind of sort of, as we do with kind of or push the parents out, and just sort of, she's like, okay. And she just started driving back, and there I was. So that was the first of 7 summers. To say that I loved it was that doesn't do it justice. So I will always be grateful in many ways to Brooks and Joanie for introducing me to Mowgli.
And that first summer was what year?
1985.
1985.
Yeah.
Just to give paint a little more onto this screen, Brooks Benjamin was the cub parent. Brooks and Joni were the cub parents for me when I was first there in 1963.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had this little raccoon that I think my father gave them because my father tried to adopt it and it was too much work for him. And I think he gave it to them. But Brooks recently passed away, and
Yeah.
he was a great guy.
He was a great guy. And if you go into the library next to Gray Brothers, Linda Robinson just put up a little memorial to him. I don't know if you
Oh,
saw.
nice. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I wrote a letter actually because one of the things that people should know about Brooks was, Brooks and Joni never had kids. And and my mom was she worked at a school, right? And there was no dads involved. And so we really didn't have very much money. And so we would come back and, there would always be bills. And oftentimes those bills would be taken to zero. And it wasn't, they never said anything, but that was always Brooks and Joanie paying off our bill. And I think that kind of says it all, right? That says it all about those guys and their generosity and what the camp also meant to them.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, makes me a little emotional.
I know. It's great. I know. He was a great man. I have, if we can all leave this place with the memories that I have of those guys, then I think we've all done a pretty good job on this planet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you came in blue, you said?
I came in blue. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you remember of that first year that sort of strikes you?
Yeah, so I have very vivid memories of all my years at Mowgli, which I'm grateful for. Um, so I remember, so I got there and I remember that I immediately was put in the intermediate area of the swimming thing, and I was unhappy about that. So
Oh, wanted to be able to go out to the
I
rack.
wanted to go out. So I said, so they said, "What are you doing on your industries?" I said, "Well, I'm doing my white ribbon, right? Because there's no way I'm staying in the intermediate spot." And then I thought it's funny, like with my dad growing up, we actually we did quite a bit of shooting in the desert. And so I thought, well, I want to do riflery. And so I did riflery. And and so those were my two industries. And actually, though, I quickly switched from riflery to tennis because it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I think I only got through my like pro marksman or something. I mean, I didn't do a very good job, I think, and so whatever. So I remember, yeah. So my white ribbon, and my yellow ribbon were those first years, and then, I have distinct memories of getting in trouble with like Doug Merrill, quite a bit because I wasn't like a disobedient kid, but I was a mischievous kid. And so Doug's always having to take me aside and say, like, what are you doing? Like, like, what are you doing?
Okay, so Doug was your counselor. He was
Yeah. So
trying to
I,
keep you
yeah.
on
So
the straight and narrow.
exactly. So Doug and Don, were both there. And then Pete St. John was living in the little apartment that was, I don't know what it's called or not, that's below Baloo.
Yep, yep.
And I think Mr. St. John I think he was my swim instructor, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but like I feel, or at least he certainly was a presence down at the waterfront.
Was he or was he not sort of the ultimate made for Hollywood camp counselor?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like he was so beloved. And by the way, when I just saw him recently at Crew Day, I think it'd been a long time since he came back.
Yep.
One, he looks the same. And I told him that. And he's just like, well, that's very nice of you. I don't think so. I was like, no, seriously, I think you look the same. I showed him all these pictures from like from back in our day. And I was like, you really don't look that different. I mean, but he totally was. And he kind of was good at everything, right? It's like, these hard pack trips, he would always lead, right? And then he was, a crew leader. And then and he always would do all these things. And he was always good at all of them. It was
But
amazing
but you'd never know it to look at him, really. I mean, he kind
at
of,
all.
he was a big teddy bear.
He was a big teddy bear and totally. And I've got some amazing, as we go through this, by the way, I have a couple of amazing stories about him.
Oh, great.
Um, so anyway, and then I think too, like I'll kind of end with this, but like, um, I had great folks in my Baloo. I really liked all the people that I was there with. But I remember the most was the den, right? So I remember so I was on Blue Crew, which Brooks was on, and and I remember Ben Renge and Jordan Cranis and all these guys that I just looked up to, like these just were like, gods in my mind, right? These are just like, oh my God, these guys are in the den. They're amazing and whatnot. So that's kind of like, after that first year,
Now, these were the guys that were ahead of you.
they were ahead of me. They were in den. Yeah.
They were
So,
in Den,
yeah. So they were, yeah,
which is the highest level dorm
the high level
within the
dorm.
town.
Yeah. And yeah, these guys were very cool. They were cool
Mhm.
guys. Yeah. So that was it. And I think that first year kind of cemented it for me. I loved it. I loved I mean, anyone who goes to Mowgli will tell you, well, let's call it, most people will say, like, in their top two or three things, what do they love? It's the lake. There is nothing like jumping into this lake at the end of the day. It's just spectacular. By the way, one other thing, I was on third form that year, and I was informed like a day before the actual crew races that I was going to be the cox. I'd never been the
You
cox.
never coxed.
I never coxed. I can't remember like why that was. Like maybe someone, I don't know, fell off or something like that, or I don't know. But anyways, I remember getting out there and the horn went, and like I remember thinking, like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I guess I just sort of steered the boat towards this area, but like I must have been the worst cox in history. Like I didn't say stroke, or if I did, it was probably off. I mean, and I think we just like got blown out of the water in terms of just like we weren't even close in winning the third.
Okay, now I'm going to tax your memory. You took tennis and riflery and
Yeah.
swimming, and you told us that Pete St. John was at least one of your instructors. Who was your tennis instructor?
I knew you'd ask this. So I can picture him in my mind, uh, but I can't remember his
Okay.
name. And it's terrible
So
because
no, so it wasn't Andy Poppenshock. He had already moved on
no,
to,
I don't believe so.
yeah.
No, I don't believe it was him.
Okay. And in the rifle range, Gary Wright or Mr. Phil, or no, you'd remembered if it was Mr. Phil, right?
Yeah.
So somebody else.
Yeah, I guess my claim of vivid memories is sort of a
Well, no,
right.
listen, there's a lot of faces to remember.
There's a lot of faces to remember. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think as time went on, I definitely will remember who those
Yeah,
folks were.
yeah. And
Yeah.
as you look back on your Baloo year, other than Mr. St. John, are there other counselors who really stand out for you in terms of the relationships that you developed with older guys?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like Peter Hugenboom was there,
Uh-huh.
Hoogie, as we call him.
Ooh,
I actually just met his sister at Onaway for the first time this past summer. So that was kind of cool. And she thought it was funny that I still call him Hoogie. She had a different name from him, and I can't remember what it was. But yeah, I mean, Hoogie and the Merrill brothers and Pete St. John. And then, of course, Bob. I think Bob got a kick out of me, Bob Angston, um, because, I sort of, I was, like I said, a mischievous kid, but I was kind of a good kid. And so that was really funny. And then, Rick Bankston as well,
yeah.
of course, was there. And so, yeah, those are the guys I really remember the most from my Blue year.
So you knew Bob largely from days that you were sent up to his porch, or?
Totally. Yeah, yeah. And I have a fun. Should I jump ahead to a really
Oh,
funny
go
story?
right ahead.
So yeah. I mean, I think when I was a junior counselor, um, I was always described as one of these guys who I was a good kid, but I could easily sort of get pulled into that area of doing something stupid just because I just was kind of go along with stuff. So I was a first year junior counselor, I think, and we were out, they sent us on brutal stuff. So I think we were not trail clearing, like brush clearing, and it was brutal work up near the upper ball field. and and I think some guy had chewing tobacco. And he said, "Hey, who wants to do some chewing tobacco?" So I was like, everyone else said, "Sure, there are four of us." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I've never done that before. Might as well. I'll try it." And I did it. I mean, it's pretty nasty. Like, I'd never, it was not really for me. But I was like, I want to be one of the guys. I don't want to be the only one doing it. Well, somehow someone came up. I don't remember who it was. And it got relayed down to Bob that there were four guys up there on the upper ball field chewing tobacco. So anyways, we come down, and I'll never forget this. It was right outside of the dining hall, and Bob meets us there, and he's just shaking his head, and he goes, "God, you guys are stupid." Right. And 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 so I said, I was just sitting there looking there, and Bob had gotten to know my mom, Peg, pretty well. And so he's going down to each one of us, it's kind of like, why, why would you do this, blah, blah. And he gets to me, he's looked at me, goes, "What would your mother think about this?" And man, I have never had a tail between my legs the way I did there because I knew like my mom would be super pissed. I'm just so mad. So yeah, Bob and I had that kind of funny relationship over the years.
Well, that sort of takes me to the question, which I don't think I've ever asked of anybody else, but since you were in a at this point you were in a single parent family, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How important was it to your personal development to actually spend a summer with these male role models who were, you know, who could replace either a father figure or a brother figure?
I don't, I think that it's not obvious to you when you're 10 and 11, but I can sit here and now and say that it was critical, like for my development, because my mom was she's still alive. She's 89, and she's doing great, but she's a really strong woman, right? And she did an amazing job with us. But it's different not having a dad around. And I think being around uh, and I, in some sense too, Wayne, like I'll even go further, which is, because my brothers and sisters were older, I was almost like a single child. So
Sure.
it's like I'm around these brothers of mine, and then there are these great human beings, that I mentioned here that I developed relations with over time. And there's no doubt about it that it was super important. I mean, no doubt about it. I think I would have been much less of a human being had I not had that, the impact of those relationships with those men.
Looking back to you, are there sort of general characteristics of these people that were inculcated into you that were important? I mean, I know I'm asking some difficult,
Oh,
I think important questions for other people to hear.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like when I think about these guys that were leading us on these pack trips, and there was the responsibility that they took on, and also there was sort of like toughness where you knew how much weight they were carrying because as the campers wouldn't carry it, and like they didn't complain. Like this was a thing about like Pete St. John. I remember one time his pack was like over 70 pounds because it was like, and he just went along, right? He just did it, and and so I think it was um just this sense of responsibility that you have, this toughness. I think a lot of times it was, as I look back now, patience, um, because it's really hard to be in charge of boys that are 10, 12, 14 years old. I mean, and I think the level of patience that all these guys showed was amazing. So yeah, I clearly there's more than that, but like, I think that I think it was really important for my development in those ways.
Yeah, there's so many things that people don't really think about uh, when it comes to that sort of thing. And when you talk about Pete with his heavy pack, I always carried, a heavy pack, and I used to tie a little Pooh Bear onto the top of my backpack. In fact, I've run into several people over the years when I was either hiking or doing some other environmental work in in New Hampshire and Vermont, who I would engage, and they would say, "You weren't that guy with the little bear on the top of his back,
Period.
were you?" And
Yeah.
yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people remembered that,
Yeah.
big old pack with, and the reason, not for the bear, but that was from a girlfriend, I think. Um, but the reason that we did that was that we wanted to make sure that the kids had packs that were light enough so that they were still enthused about
Yeah.
learning to backpack.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there clearly was a sacrifice there that was going on, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
somebody, I mean, with Pete St. John, I also think about the spirit that he imbued into the process of cooperating with one another to make it up to this summit and to revel in it.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree. And then I'll add one more, Wayne, here. Actually, as we were just talking about this, it struck me, which was I think the the calmness in the face of adversity. This might be number one actually, which is I for some reason on the pack trips that I went on, we experienced a number of really tough situations where like, you if the kids were on their own, it'd be sheer panic. And but these counselors that were there just, you gotta figure it out, right? It's like going nuts doesn't help the situation at all. And I really remember this calmness, right, in this face of adversity. And that I think was, I mean, that is for sure one of the most important things I think all of us need to do in this life, right? Is because you go through tough situations and it's how you react to it.
Do you remember any specific instances at the
Uh,
risk of
uh,
having you tell
no,
the
totally. I got this one. I got this one. Uh, so my den year, we were in the Carter Marias, and right, and it was a 4 day, 3 night, and I think we were on the third day, if I'm not mistaken. And it was supposed to be great weather. So like, you know how it is. It's like we had shorts, t-shirt, and then I think like a sweater and then poncho. Like that's basically it.
Yep.
And I remember this the afternoon, and we had a pretty clear view of the presidentials, and so Mount Washington. And man, if there wasn't the biggest gray squall coming over Washington, where you could just look at that and you're like, well, that's not good. And it was moving fast. And I don't quite know for sure, but what I can tell you is like that temperature, all of a sudden the day went from like 70 and sunny to probably, close to freezing, and sleeting and hail. And we were in a really steep part. And so it was Pete St. John, and then another counselor named Leif Mayfield. I'm gonna get his name wrong, but Leif.
Yeah.
And I remember them, it started to get bad. It got bad quick. Like you didn't just lightly lean into the storm. The storm was on you. And they're like, we're 4 miles from the hut. We were gonna go to like that one of those lean-tos or whatever where it's three sides. And they're like, I don't know if we can get there. And we did have tents, but there was no place to like put up the tents at all. So like
Right.
we've got to go. And along the way, like, there were clear signs of like hypothermia kicking in because a lot of the boys were just like they weren't making any sense. And it was super steep, and like the hail and the sleet didn't let up. It just, and so we were soaked. Like it might as well, and because there was wind too. So like the ponchos are all over the place. And anyways, we finally get to this thing. And I remember them talking about like if it's full, they're making room for us. And we get there, and Pete said, he said, all right, everyone packs off, clothes off, sleeping bags, right? Getting your sleeping bags because people are just frozen. And I remember this, like, I don't know what this was, I don't know what came over me, but he said, I need one person to get up and like we're gonna make this soup that everyone can have. And it's just going to be this mishmash of thing. And I said, well, like, I'll do it because I think maybe I was in better shape than other folks. So we gave out, and we make this soup full of just like, it's like ramen and eggs and maybe tuna in there, like anything you could throw in there is what we made. And we passed it around to everyone. And, and then, yeah, but I mean, like, it was to the point where Pete St. John was having to go around and like manually massage kids' feet because they were frozen.
Wow.
And so the funny thing is about this, Wayne, is that when I saw Pete this past summer, at Crew Day, he remembered every single detail of this down to the soup, which is crazy because how many of these places, it just goes to show you like that was probably the most gnarly situation I've ever been in on a pack trip where, like, legitimately this is one of those things where you really don't ever hope happens. But it was but yeah, but the guys that, again, the back to the counselors, like those guys were calm. Like the kids were freaking out. It's like you're 14, you're frozen, right? You're scared. Those guys were calm whole way. It was amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah,
So that was in your den year, you
that
said?
was Den.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was my Den year.
So as you're telling me some great stories. I don't want you to skip anything just because I end up asking you about something else. So
Yeah.
as you progressed through those middle dorms, Aquila and Panther, um, what are sort of the more memorable bits of your memories of that?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was in Aquila, I did my green and my orange, and and I loved that. Like I loved getting, I remember very vividly, right? When you're in your green ribbon for camping, and they're like, one of the things you got to do is be able to make a fire in a storm.
Yep.
And so, there we were, and there are those guys, just hammering us with the Indian tanks, you know, as we're trying to do it, just blasting our fires apart, and whatever, you got to figure it out and keep going. And then I really remember my orange ribbon was really special for me because Chad Bradbury was my counselor, and obviously the Bradburys have a long history with Mowgli, and I love Chad, man. He was awesome. He was so good, and I remember I felt like that's of all of the ribbons, I felt like I went from being not knowing what I was doing at all to feeling like I really know how to use an axe. And I remember there were these. It was funny actually when I saw Chad again at Mowgli this past summer for the first time in a while, and we were talking about this, and I was like, they're not there anymore. But I was pointing to as you come down from the Jungle House and on down whatever and into to Gray Brothers Field, right before you get there, where the
Yeah.
croquet board is, those water bars. I put those water bars in, and or maybe I replaced them like because they were trash. Now they're like professionally done and whatnot. But I remember like that was hard. I'm 12. You got to cut down a tree, pull it over there. Build the water bars, and like you you like he helped me do hard stuff, which is awesome. Like that was awesome. I loved that. And then in Aquila too, that was the first time. I don't know how we got to do this, but we were on like Montalban Ridge, and so we summited the Mount Washington, and I
Yep.
thought that was pretty cool to do that when you're 12. Like that was pretty sweet. Um, and so that was a really great year. I always say this, and I say this to my daughter who's going to Onaway right now, which is however much you love that year, you'll love the next one even more. And that's the way it was for me because then came back to Panther, and that year I did my golden anchor and my rowboating, so silver. And um, a, a counselor by the name of Oscar was my sailing, and I don't remember his last name.
Oh yeah, I remember him though.
Yeah, and
He was from Spain, I think, or
yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's right. And then Ben Ringe was my counselor for rowboating. And I think there were two of us in the entire rowboating. And then one guy dropped out like halfway through the summer. So it was me and Ben for the silver over ribbon only. But it was like that was awesome because I still thought Ben was awesome, and so it was just such a fun I always think like my Panther year was one of my best years because man, I loved being in those sailboats. I loved being just down on the water. I mean, it was so great. And that year we did the Mahoosucs, which was, I think everyone who's done that before will know that, the Mahoosic Notch, right, is the super gnarly spot. I mean, that just to be able to do that is just so great. And and so yeah, those years were really good for me. And like I said, each year was successively was better than the previous one.
well, I have a Mahoosuc story to tell that I'll try and collapse it down to say that is my favorite place in the world to
Mm,
hike.
mm,
And I just love Mohsick Notch. And I love the fact that all those AT hikers would hike by us and bitch and moan about the fact that 1 mile was taking them so long to navigate. And
yeah,
here we were stopping and having snowball fights in August and snow cones and just reveling in the experience. And so I'm writing a book now. Well, after I got my ass kicked running for governor back in 1994,
uh-huh,
I took a solo trip on the Mahoosucs with my dog. So, I slept on top of one of the mountains, and I think it
mm,
was Goose Eye, and
mhm,
just didn't even bother to set up a tent. Just put my sleeping bag out, and it was a beautiful night, and sort of helped me come to my senses and
yeah,
remember what was real in life.
yeah,
So now I'm working on a book that's titled The Longest Mile, and I'm gonna and I've started it out with a story about going through Mahoosuc Notch
yeah,
and what an extraordinary thing it was. And here all these AT folks were going by and missing the glory of the experience because they were in such a hurry to make that extra mile before the day was over.
yeah. I so it's interesting because I think doing that when you're 13, 14, I think for the most part, not everyone, I think you find the joy in it, right? Because it's like cool, it's fun. It's like, you used to be like love the monkey bars and doing crazy stuff, right? Just doing stuff like that. And like I remember feeling distinctly, I was like, this is kind of awesome. Yeah, it was hard, but whatever. Like you're not in any rush, you're just doing it. I was like, this is super cool. Like I loved it. It was so fun. So I think maybe yeah, have doing it when you're younger and it's you take joy in things like that.
Well, maybe that's why I still take joy in
I love it.
that.
Yeah. I love it. That's so great.
So that was your Panther year, right?
Panther year, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I think it's safe to say that that was the trip that I added to the Mowgli backpacking itinerary in my years as trip master. So,
Okay.
yeah, and I wish I could remember who told me about it because
Mm.
it was, considerably farther north than
Yeah,
the other things that we did.
yeah, yeah,
It was, it is extraordinary.
yeah. Well, thank you for putting that on there. That was a great trip.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so in Dan, wait, have I missed anything important in your Panther year or?
I don't think so. Other than we won our first form race.
Uh-huh. So you moved,
I thought that was
you
important.
moved up to first form and you were
I
probably
went from
moving.
third form to second form to first form, and that was kind of a cool year for. So this is 87 for racing because I remember there were the red for racing crew and first form were supposed to blow us out of the water because the first form had like two denites and the rest of pantherites, and we had like I think four pantherites and two acolytes in our first form boat, and we just I don't know we won. I just remember we won, and I remember the race blue racing crew, which had two pantherites on it, and red had all denites or whatever. They were so fired up that I was like, they're not going to lose, and they didn't. And so that was really cool. That was my first year of experience some kind of victory. So that was good, right? Because I think we lost third and second form on the previous years. So no, that was it. That was Panther, and yeah, and then came back from in '88 for my den year.
Yeah, well, there are a few of those stories over the years where everybody sort of expected the biggest dorm, and the strongest boys to
Yeah,
succeed. And I used to tell my boy about that. I used to say, you're gonna go up against some people that you think are way too big for you because he started he became the cox of the sorry, he became the stroke of the Red Racing crew in Aquila,
okay. Oh wow.
and he won every year, Aquila, Panther, and Dent. But I would say to him, it is not how strong the boys in the boat is, it's how united they are.
Totally. Yeah. And that holds, right? I mean, that holds to a T. I always say this story too. In '85, the Blue Boat, again, my first year was massive. They were massive guys. I mean, these were like you look at them now and you'd think that they were big. And they were like you guys like Frank Williams and Jordan Crane, big guys. And I remember thinking like, oh, well, they're just going to blow them out of the water. So of course, as a little 11-year-old, I'm talking trash. And I remember they lost, man. I cried so much. But that was the first lesson of it is. You never know. It's about how united you are and power doesn't equate into speed, right? Not in the boat. I mean, yeah, it helps, but like only if you have the other things too.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were on the racing crew in Den?
I was the racing crew, so I was bow. And we had a really good boat. Actually, one of the guys who rode, I believe he rode three or four. I think he rode four. A guy by the name of Thor Runman, who was a great guy, and he I think he went on to Rowan College. And so and there were two guys there that were on the racing crew from the previous year. So we had a lot and we were tight and we were close, and we felt pretty good about our chances. it's funny. There was the Cox for us was a kid by the name of Seth Gaines. And I just saw Seth for the first time this past year, since camp. And
Wow.
and he lives in DC now, and he's big, like he's big. He was not big then, he was little. And I was joking because his wife was there and she was saying, like, well, what was like, was it fun to have Seth in the boat? I was like, no. Like he said horrible things to us in that race. He said things to us that I could never like repeat. I was like, but he got our butts down that course and went on. So that was really fun to see him.
And Seth, it was the son, I believe, of the
Yes.
guy who coached crew when I was a kid,
Yeah.
Sandy.
Sandy. Yes, that's right. Now that's his son. Yeah. No, which
Well,
is great.
that's funny.
It's
So
just,
Sandy probably taught him how to swear and told him he better do that when they're on the course because no one can hear you there except the guys in the boat.
totally. Yeah. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I remember what he said to us like it was yesterday.
Yeah, and a kid with that kind of experience, not necessarily as a coxswain, but just with that kind of experience behind him, knows to say, "Hey, number two, you're late,"
Yeah.
or you got to pull longer,
Yeah.
stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it was a good year. I loved my den year. We did the Connecticut Lake trip, which I thought was really cool to do. 'Cause I think it's the only, at least at the time, it was the only no, that's not true. We did the Saco River trip when I was in Baloo, but like going up there and that was great. And then the Carter Marias were our other one too. So yeah, when I finished with Den, wasn't I knew I was coming back. I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. So I came back. So I would have been 88, and so 89 was my first year on staff.
Uh-huh. And what did you help out with? I mean, aside from all the awful things that the JS has to do.
God, I know. It was. I look back like it was brutal, right? I mean, the amount of time that I spent in that dish room, and you just stink coming out of there, right? But it was good. So I helped with tennis, primarily actually my 2 years that I was on junior counselor, I primarily did tennis, and so I did it with Benjamin, who is he that's what he was teaching, and then actually my last year is my first year, or my first and last year as a senior counselor, is when I finally taught sailing,
Oh, okay.
which let me tell you, I don't know if I was a good sailing instructor or not. I think maybe I was okay, but there was nothing like teaching sailing, because you kind of just go out on the sailboat. You yell at the kids that are in the other sailboat, but you're kind of doing your own thing too. And well, that was a pretty relaxing summer. That was great. It was great. Yeah.
So, you got any other great stories that you've been thinking about and want to tell me?
It's funny. I think
You've
uh
had some great ones so far.
yeah, yeah, I one that like really kind of, it says a little bit about, like, I think Mowgli and developing folks, which is, my senior year, my den year, um, I uh, I only made the Gopher squad, and I was super disappointed, and I couldn't understand why. And I think it was actually Ben that took me aside. He said, "Hey, man, I think it's probably just because." You're like a great kid 90% of the time, and 10% of the kid you get caught up in the wrong crowd. And I thought, okay, well, that's kind of a harsh lesson, but I'm glad someone told me that. And then you fast forward to my last year on counselor, so I was 92. And I don't know, I just felt like I'd really matured. Like, I just matured. And I think, Bob took me aside and he said, I just want to let you know that I think you're doing such an excellent job on the senior staff that, you're going to be rewarded by going on the Mount Washington squad.
Oh,
I
nice.
got my Mount Washington squad, which was great. And
That's a real honor.
yes, yes. So, Matt, people have different paths in their development, right? But I think like just and obviously a lot of it happens outside of Mowgli, but a lot of it happens at Mowgli. And I think, it was a place that really helped me mature and in a lot of different ways, physically, emotionally. And I'm glad that I was able to, given that chance and it sort of made up for that. So yeah, that was yeah, but that was, there's lots of stories. I think I kind of named the big ones here. I'll give you one more, Wayne, about Bob. And so hopefully folks who are watching this know Bob Bankston. Again, seeing I was senior staff and I think everyone had left. And so we were just cleaning up the camp. And that night, Bob had invited like whoever was left over, the senior staff, to come like watch a movie. And and I think Bob had it in mind, like what he wanted to watch, up and again up the Jungle House. And so he, I come up there, and one of I can't remember who it was, but one of the other senior staff said, "Hey, some of us are talking about, we really want to watch, this French movie." Bob looks at him like with these eyes. And he's like, "Oh, okay. If you guys want to, there's another TV in there." And they leave. He goes, "I don't want to watch some French movie. I want to watch Clint because we talk about we were going to watch Dirty Harry." But I've never seen him so animated about that because, he'd always kind of get calm and cool. And there was Bob. He's like, "I'm not, no, no, we're watching Clint Eastwood here. We're watching Dirty Harry." So that was fun. That was a funny moment with, yeah,
Well, as a mischievous kid anyway, I mean, at heart, um, uh, you rarely saw, most people rarely saw that side of Bob Benson,
yeah,
but I saw it
you did.
on a regular basis.
Yeah,
There was usually nobody else there to witness it. So, so he was able to maintain this air of sort of aloofness and calmness among the kids.
yeah,
But I can tell you one story about Bob that happened at the beginning of the summer, not at the end.
uh-huh.
And I can't tell you that I actually remember who the victim was, but I think it was Steve Minnick who had he played the trumpet, and um, for some reason, Bob rolled that little cannon down below underneath Tumai,
Hmm.
and um,
Oh, wow.
and Minnick and two other guys, two guys with flashlights, pointing at this guy's bed after he had gone to sleep, and all of a sudden Bob pulls the cannon. It goes, it thundered through the dormitory, and the other boys held the lights, and Minnick blew his trumpet, and somebody else said, "Train, train!" And you never saw anybody get out of bed faster than that fella.
That is amazing. So
And
the cannon went off under Tumai.
oh yeah, yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
That would, yeah,
thunder. And it was
crazy.
it was probably 12 o'clock at night.
That's shaking the whole thing. That's amazing.
Uh,
I love that. Yeah, yeah. You always know that there's something deeper.
well, yeah, and
Right.
Bob was especially as a younger counselor, he was especially um, prone to that kind of stuff when he was a younger counselor.
Yeah.
And I can remember one year, the competition between the Reds and the Blues
Yeah.
um, went on, and he was definitely in the middle of some of that stuff. I don't know whether Mr. Hart ever caught on or not, but then the end of the summer came, and a bunch of us went out late at night, And I think Bob might have been the instigator, but it could have been Paul Brown. Um, After closing time at what was then called Captain Blastoffs, that had a big old rocket on the top of the building,
Yeah.
we pulled into that parking lot in my van, and Bob and another guy climbed up the roof of Captain Blastoffs and detached the missile, and we put it in my van and we drove up and put it point in the ground in front of Pasquani.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I
Oh
know.
boy.
Can't get away with that stuff these days.
Probably not.
No, tougher.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so let me give you a couple of questions, pop questions, and then I'm going to ask you about sort of how to summarize it all. The chapel.
Yeah.
What does the chapel mean to you?
Um, it in some ways, it was a lot like um, rest hour, which was I didn't like it at the beginning, and then you get older, and then you learn to love it and appreciate it. And I think too, especially you're getting into your den years, counselor years, you appreciate this surround. The thing I remember the most is just how peaceful it was. You know, it was just so peaceful there. And I don't even know if I was paying attention to what anyone was saying because I remember just looking up at those trees and just it was just so peaceful. That's what I think about the most there. Is like it was a nice place to just be at peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think that's a good way to give you the final question, which is as you look back. Oh, I want to talk about your life a little bit. You got time to do
I
that?
do. Yeah.
So tell us about the arc of your life since Mowgli.
Yeah. So I stopped going in 1992. Um, and then I went to a small college. So that would have been my senior year after my senior year of high school. And then I went to a small college in Southern Illinois called Principia College.
Oh yeah.
And then I was a business and history double major there. And after that was done, I I moved out to Washington, D.C. and was very, very lucky to be honest, and got a job at a firm called Cambridge Associates, which is an investment consulting firm. 4 years there, 2 years. I went back to LA actually and got my MBA at UCLA. And then stayed in Orange County, and then I started working for. So this would have been like '01 to '03 that I was at UCLA, and then after that, I worked for a hedge fund, a startup hedge fund, which was the right time to go into that. And that was I spent a lot of time in London there and then came back. And um, in 2013, I moved up to San Francisco. So my entire career has just been in investment finance.
Uh-huh.
And what's interesting is in 2013, moved up to San Francisco, and my work took me up to Boston. And that was the first time that I went back to visit Mowgli.
Oh, okay.
And I think a lot of people have that story, right? Which is like they sort of leave and then they have kind of a break a little bit.
Yep.
Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of folks. And then they go back and then they never leave again.
Right, right.
That was me. And so I think when I was there, I think Sam Punderson was the director then, if I'm not mistaken. And then so he kind of showed me around. He let me go swim in the lake, and I was like, oh man, this place is just so special. And then it was around that time that Nick Robbins came on, and I think I had met. Did I meet him? I can't quite remember how I got. Chris Fan. I saw Chris Faniff in Boston because Chris was at the time was the president of the board, and where I was just kind of networking. I said, if there's ever a chance for me to be on the board, I would love to do it. And so Nick called me like a week later and said, "Are you interested in being on the board?" I said, I said
Mhm.
absolutely. And so my first year was 2015, 16, I think. And then in anyway, so was doing that, and then yeah, in 2019 I moved up to Portland where I am now. So I'm the chief investment officer at Reed College up here. I was like, this is where Steve Jobs went to school for a
Yeah,
short period of
yeah.
time, and so I manage the endowment. And yeah, so I've been doing that for 6 years now. I just rolled off the board. That was my last
Oh,
year.
you just finished. Okay,
I did, but I'm staying on to the finance committee to help manage the growing endowment for the camp.
great. So, well, first, thank you for 10 years or
Yeah,
more in service. That's that an incredible sacrifice.
yeah. It was hard at times, especially being on the West Coast.
Yeah,
But it was worth it. I mean, I love the place, right? And when you love a place and you believe in it, you make sacrifices for it.
yeah, yeah. And Nick has just been extraordinary.
He has. Yeah. I mean, to think that the camp at one point in time was close to not making it.
Hey, I was in the middle of Bob had asked me to, I was doing consulting and doing fine at it,
Hmm.
but he asked me to come back and help when things were looking at their lowest.
Yeah.
And it was Bob and I who actually had to make the decision to go to the trustees and say, we need to shut down for the summer. And the reason we need to do that is because we need to scare everybody in. I mean, we were at a low point in terms of enrollment anyway,
Yeah.
but we said we need to scare everybody in terms of whether Mowgli would survive so that they would take it seriously.
Yeah.
And they did. I mean, we
Yeah.
built the whole new bathhouse. We did renovations in all kinds of places, and it's been on an upward trajectory since then. But when Nick came on board, he really gets it.
Yeah. Yeah. He does. Yeah. And it's kind of a classic case, I think, too, which is a lot like anything, which is uh, good things take a long time to build, but they can be brought down pretty quickly.
Uh, that's what I've been saying lately to an awful lot of my friends about the country.
Yes, no, totally. That's absolutely right. Right. I mean, it's like, things can fall quickly with bad leadership.
Yeah,
And that extends across society, I think, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I think, I think all of us are immensely grateful for Nick. And it was also just too, like, I think the board really stepped up and made some tough choices, some tough decisions. And there were a lot of people who just kind of got on board to right the ship.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What year was that when you guys had to shut the camp again?
2001.
2001. Yeah.
Might have been 2002. I'm pretty sure it was 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a heart-wrenching time.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that's brutal. I mean, just to think that like a place as amazing and special as this was almost not to be. So,
right, right.
yeah.
So looking back on your life, how do you think Mowgli has influenced the person that you have come to be?
Yeah, you know, I, there's a lot of us who can say this, but I spent almost a year of my life there, and during the summers, and there's one piece of it too where it's funny. All my friends I grew up with in St. Louis, none of them went to camp. None of them. And there's all these like cool things that I know how to do, like sail and, build, like cut down a tree and,
Right.
you know, plan a backpacking trip. I do this now, like we go backpacking out here and like everyone's just like, you do it, because you know what you're doing. And so there's that stuff, which I think is really cool, for sure. But I think it's just, I do remember this very clearly of I think like one area is this, and we talk a lot about this. We talked a lot about this at the board, is this concept of developing resilience. And nothing will do that more than, when you're on a pack trip and your pack is heavy and you're tired and that mountain just keeps going up and up and there's just relentless, and you just learn over time. You're like, you just got to keep going. You got to keep going. Like there's no other choice. You got to keep going. And I think there's no doubt that in my life, whether it was when I was playing college tennis or whether things get tough, whatever, you can build on that resilience that you built, during the summers when you were asked to do hard things. And and that does something for you. You know you'll get through it. There's something, you just got to keep going. For me, that's like the number one.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that that's great. And like it's why my daughter Ellie is 10 and she just finished her first year at Onaway and she loved it and she wants to go back.
Oh,
And
good.
I know Onaway and Mowgli have different programs, but I want her to develop that kind of
Sure.
resilience. Um, so I think that that was kind of a really great thing. I think the other one too is that you're put in a lot of different situations, whether it's through the industries, whether you're on the pack trips, whether it's through crew week, and there's stressful situations and whatnot, and you're with 15 other boys, and people don't always get along. You got to find a way to get along. You got to find, you just got to find a way, and I think that that's a really great life lesson and Mowgli is so relevant these days with like, the worst invention of all time in my life, or in my experience, social media and, and what it's doing to society, but, and Mowgli and its ability to make people socially interact and all this other stuff. And I think that was a big piece of it
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure. I was a bit long-winded, but
No, not at all. Not at all. Erik Bernhardt, uh, thank you so much, not only for your um, the service that you've rendered to Mowgli over the years, and um, but also for some great stories to share with a lot of other people. I expect that I'm going to hear from a lot of people. In fact, when I'm finished producing this, there's a few people that are going to get it in the mail as an email, like Pete St. John.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, Wayne. It's been great, and like, and I'm genuinely serious. This, like, anyone that I ever went to camp with, or I was a counselor of, or whatever, like, all those people, like, really, you know, they'll never know how much like it all meant to me. And thanks for all those folks for sure.
Now I can cut this out, but I'm going to ask you, can I include your email address in the show notes?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
I've just recently started asking that question because I was leaving it out to protect people's privacy, but then, the number of people who have contacted me and said, "Hey, can I have so and so's email address?" So, good. I'm glad to know that we can connect you with some old friends, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, yeah. It's I'm coming up on, yeah. So I guess it was 40 years ago this past year that my first year at Mowgli.
Wow.
Crazy. Goes
Huh.
by fast, real
Well,
fast.
good hunting, my brother, and take care and thank you.
Good hunting, Wayne. Thanks so much. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Yep. Bye bye.